Find the early finish of activity J. In this problem, we know that the early start of the project equals 1. The problem also provides a list of 10 activities, which are identified by letters, A through J. Each activity takes a certain duration of time to complete, and any predecessor activities are also included and identified by the activity ID letter. We'll begin by sketching a simplified network diagram. We first notice that activities A, B, C, and D have no predecessor activities. Therefore, we'll add these 4 activities to our network diagram first. Activities A and B are the predecessors of activity E. So we'll next add a box for activity E, with the 2 arrows representing this contingency. Activities C and E are the predecessors of activity F. So we'll next add a box for activity F, with 2 more arrows representing contingency. Activity E is the only predecessor of activity G, and activities F and G are the predecessors of activity H. Activities D and G are predecessors to activity I, and activities H and I are the predecessors to activity J. The detailed activity box template usually includes 6 separate cells for information, including the early and late start and finish times, as well as the duration and total float of the activity. However, in this problem, we only need the early start, duration, and early finish. So, to save space, we'll only append these 3 boxes to the right side of all activity boxes in the network. And now we're ready to begin our forward pass through the network. The problem asks to find the early finish of activity J. The problem provides the early start of the entire project, as well as the duration of time it takes to complete each activity. We'll return to the network diagram and substitute in the early start of 1 into the 4 activities having no predecessor activity. Next, we'll plug in the durations for all 10 activities. We'll begin by adding the early start and duration to determine the early finish for activities A through D, as shown. The early start of activity E equals the larger value between the early finish of activity A and the early finish of activity B, which is 7. The early finish of activity E equals the early start of activity E plus the duration of activity E, which equals 19. Now we can compute the early start